We're live, everybody. We're live. We're streaming through YouTube. Hey, everybody. Happy Thursday. Welcome to the Shenanigans Show, Business Shenanigans Show. I'm your co-host, Kathy Klotz-Guest. And as always, with me is the beautiful Carrie O'Shea Gorgone. Hello, Carrie.
Hello, Kathy. How's things over at Keeping It Human?
Things are going real humany. They're going really humany.
That's good. We haven't been taken over by machines yet?
No, not yet anyway. And this is our first, welcome to sort of the inaugural episode where we're streaming it through YouTube. I'm like way above my pay grade, and I'm so grateful to have the two co-founders of Trust Insights here. We've got Chris Penn, we've got Katie Robert here with us, with Carrie, and they're like, I'm laughing because like, this is the first time I've done this through OBS, and like everything that could go wrong setting up, and then Skype froze and I had to reboot. Of course, all the things that like, you know, tech does. And
that sounds like a disorder.
It is a disorder. It is a disorder. And yeah, I'll be the first to go if technology takes over, because they'll be like, you know what? She doesn't really get tech, but she's funny. We'll keep her around.
So I love having guests with names that sound classy, like Katie Robert.
Katie Robert and Christopher Penn, and we've got Carrie O'Shea Gorgone.
That adds to the appeal, Katie.
That's it. We're here. You know, it's welcome back, everybody. Because we took a little bit of a holiday break from business shenanigans, and we're back with more shenanigans. And we're going to talk data and data analytics and dark data.
So I don't know if you know, but Katie is wicked smart about governance and leadership and data. And Chris Penn scares everyone when he talks about artificial intelligence, machine learning, and the potential of data.
Well, actually, we have the two smartest people on data here. Like, and it does not, that data set does not include me.
I know about data. I worked with Chris to develop a course for marketing profs that launches next month, where people for the first time will be able to select the metrics that they need based on their business needs, instead of just reacting to like somebody else's available dashboard. And I'm so excited about it. We had somebody go in, like the course isn't even live yet, and somebody somehow found like a back way in and did it. And they were like, "Where's all the downloads?" And I'm like, "The course isn't even up yet. Get out!"
Because they can't wait. No, they can't wait.
They're
so
excited for the Chris Penn.
They are excited. They're excited. And we should say, I'm the founder of Keeping It Human, and Carrie runs the Marketing Smarts podcast. So what she's referring to is some of the good stuff that Chris has been working on with her on that. Now, data, and yeah, for marketing profs. And I don't get super excited about data. And the reason is that I get overloaded. Now, I'm not a Luddite. I know it shocks people. I came out of tech. I ran marketing in tech. I was a Gartner analyst, a DataQuest analyst once upon a time, many years ago. So I'm not unfamiliar with data. I'm not scared of data. But I got to tell you, I think we're living in a world where there's so much data, I'm just overloaded. And I think everybody thinks the answer to better marketing is just more data. Like if we just throw data at the problem, we're going to have better marketing. So I don't know. I think that's a bunch of damn nonsense. What do you guys think?
I think you're absolutely right in terms of the overload, and just throw more data at it.
This was a good talk. Thanks, Katie.
They agree. Throw more data at it. No, you're absolutely right. So we encounter this a lot, and what we often find, especially nowadays with all of the different software systems, is that people just keep adding on top of itself. Their marketing tech stack gets out of control, so they end up having half a dozen systems that they don't even know what data lives inside of it. But well, this one collects this metric, and this one collects this metric, but they really don't even know what to do with it. So you're absolutely right. There is this sense of data overload. So, what we really want to see in the movement is really to sort of streamline it and sort of pick out exactly what those metrics are that you absolutely need. Chris?
Data is a lot like crude oil. Like there's a 2006 professor, I can't remember who it was, who said data is the new oil. That's a really good analogy, because if you don't have any way to refine it, and you don't have any way to use it, just adding more crude oil doesn't help anything, right? It just makes a literal tar pit. The data you needs to be refined, needs to be processed, needs to be brought to market. And so if you have those capabilities, then yeah, you can add more crude oil because you've got a big refinery and you can make more gasoline or plastic bowls that don't break when you throw them on the floor, whatever the case may be. But if you don't have that capability, it's just going to make things messier.
All I'm thinking now is that movie with Daniel Day-Lewis, you know, he's like the oil tycoon, remember? And it's like, and I'm just, do you remember which one I'm talking about? And
no, my mind went to that crappy NH movie about the erupting volcano.
I'm thinking of this like oil tycoon movie, and he's just like, more oil, and it's like, more data.
What about Chris says evil tycoon to you?
He doesn't. He doesn't. But when as he's talking about crude oil, that's what's the metaphor going through my mind. It's like, well, but I appreciate that because I think you're right. It's we've got this stuff and it has to be processed. To your point, it has to be processed, extracted. It has to be the right oil to make it usable. Has to be gleaned so that what we're looking at is information that makes sense.
What's really funny about that is they're buying their own crude oil pit. It's not like, yay, we struck oil like it normally is. They're paying a lot of money for a giant crude oil pit that does nothing.
Well, and it strikes me, and Chris and Katie, I want to hear your perspective here. It's like, it strikes me that, people strike oil. Then they're like, oh my God, we got a crap ton of oil. And then it's like, well, what do we do with it now? What the hell now? And they've got
cancel the backyard barbecue.
Exactly, cancel the backyard barbecue. Note to self: don't come. Hashtag crude oil. But then, what do you do with it? Because it seems to me we talk a lot about data all the time, and data analytics is such a hot thing, and there's still a lot of companies I think that don't know what to do with it, don't have the right data, maybe are swimming in data, but don't have the right data. And everyone says you got to have data, but it's not clear to me that most marketers even understand what data they should have.
Or why they're collecting it.
So how do you make us smarter? What do we do?
Yeah, how do you guys fix that?
How do you fix that? So what's up with that?
Yeah, fix it.
Fix it now. Hashtag fix it. Crude oil. Hashtag crude oil.
Dark data.
Light up that dark data.
So, in all seriousness, the place you start with your goals. What's the goal? If your goal is more revenue, then you filter down those metrics in terms of what impacts revenue over time. We used to work with a client whose sole goal was more followers for their CEO's Twitter handle, and that was the only thing they cared about.
Oh, wow.
So every effort that they did, every marketing effort had to tie back to getting that CEO more Twitter handles. And Chris, what was the reason for that?
They were just vain.
It must have been super fun when the CEO left too. I'm taking my Twitter with me.
It was they benchmarked themselves against their nearest competitor, and so it was a size comparison contest between this CEO and the competing CEO.
Well, I guess size matters to some people. I mean, I get it,
It's how you use it.
It's how you work the vanity metric, I guess. It's, that's
so
really
what they cared about. But to Katie's point, you can figure out an actual valuable thing.
Yeah.
And
worry about.
We offered
counsel
about this is probably not going to help your business. And sure enough, 16 months after that person came on board, the board ejected him.
That's a vanity metric.
He still had his Twitter followers.
He still had his Twitter followers, right? Well, and that's and that's a really important point. I mean, I'm smirky because it just sounds so funny because it is vanity and there's ego, and I understand that. But to Carrie's point, it just strikes me as it's finding the right metric. I mean, how hard is that? And I know that this is your bailiwick. This is what you guys do, and you're really good at it. Because it strikes me, a lot of times the metrics we even with my own business that I think matter might not be the right metrics, because there's leading indicators, there's lagging indicators, the things, that, is engagement a precursor to, to maybe conversion? I don't know. How do you even know what the right metrics are? Because I'm sure a lot of people.
Which data impacts the other data, like what's causal and what's just a coincidence.
Correlated and what's causal, yeah.
So there's an entire branch of statistics called Bayesian statistics that attempts to figure this out. And there are a number of attribution models. We are in the process of doing one right now for a large automotive client. We take essentially what is the equivalent of a very, very, very large spreadsheet that is probably 10,000 columns wide, and a computer mixes and matches every possible combination of every column against the target, which is, in this case, revenue. And this branch of mathematics says, okay, this set of numbers combined essentially form the highest relationship to the outcome that you want. And that essentially is your sort of your KPI determination. Like, these are the things that really play a participatory role in that. You can take it even a step further with a type of machine learning called Markov chains, which are like Jenga. Like, if you can imagine a pile like Jenga, hot tiles of Jenga, you pull out a block and the whole tower collapses. Wow. If you do that with data, like, you think about somebody, they go to a webinar, they read an email, they interact with you on social, all these chains of interactions. If you have a large backlog of data that says these are the interaction patterns that lead to conversions, then you can mathematically swap in and out pieces and figure out, yes, this channel has the highest likelihood of collapsing the tower. You pull this out and the tower collapses more often than not. We did this for a publisher client of ours, and we found that 19% of the conversions were powered by organic search. Cool. That was not revelatory. What was fascinating was they are spending a lot of time and money on Facebook, and Twitter is the next 4 converting channels. So the next 4 converting methods are like, you're putting the money here, but the conversion's over here.
Yeah.
Maybe you want to rethink that.
Yeah.
So all that data they're piling up, you can actually make sense of it retrospectively?
Yes.
That's good. Because a lot of times they're like, oh, hell, pull up stakes and start over. None of this makes any sense.
That's really fascinating, because I suspect there's a lot of that. I mean, I can't help but think that this is probably across the board, that a lot of businesses really are looking maybe at the wrong things and don't know where to start. And like, is there a common thing that you can point to in the work that you both do? It's like, are there like common misunderstandings about the data or where to start that you see over and over again? And like, if you could just tell people, a couple things, this is what you need to understand. Because I feel like, I think there's this sense of, well, the data will say that we have data. Well, what data do you have? I don't know, but we have data. So what are those misunderstandings?
I think the first thing is it's piling the different software systems on top of each other, but then never really configuring them for what it is that you actually need. So what we often see is everything is just plugged in out of the box, and then people are surprised when it's not working, or it's not necessarily collecting the metrics that they thought it was going to, because it was never set up properly. So there's a lot of this misunderstanding that you can just plug and play and then magically all of your data shows up. I think that's maybe the biggest misunderstanding that we see.
That, and one of the things that I see and that Katie participates in brings an enormous amount of value on, is that the data and the platform is 1/3 of the puzzle. Right? There's the people side, which is the humans and what's in their heads, and then there's the process side, which is how do those humans do what they do. The assumption is that AI is magic and therefore solves all the problems, and really it's nothing more in many cases than the analogy I always go to is it's like having a really good frying pan, right? If you don't know how to cook and you don't have a kitchen, that frying pan's not super helpful.
Yeah.
For home security, it is.
That's right. That's right.
What if it's cast iron?
That's almost as good as like having an ADT. That's like having that backup cast iron. I think that's, there you go. Almost. Well, no, it's true. We forget the people side of it. And I suspect the people side of it is like huge because you've got the misunderstanding about how to implement it, what they should be looking for. And then the bias, the unconscious bias of like, thinking the data might be one thing and then it's another. And people are just a pain in the ass,
Well,
they just
hold on to their cherished illusions about their pet projects and stuff. And if it's not working, it's not working.
Exactly.
And I think that's hard for people to face.
I think it's hard for people to face. I can also see how, like, if you've got a data team, and I know there's exceptions, but like people are paying. They have that vested emotional interest, as Carrie's saying, in their kind of fiefdom. So if you come in and then you start looking under the hood and things start unraveling and people are like, I don't want anybody looking at my data. It's my data. Because then somebody from the outside is kind of being that third party audit and going, well, maybe. And they're like, shoo, get out of here. This is, and nobody internally, and there's few people internally that might be able to even go to a data team if they don't know enough about the data to challenge, are we collecting the right stuff? Because they don't even know how to challenge and what they should be collecting. I suspect that happens a lot. So people are a pain in the butt. How do you deal with that?
Well, so you're absolutely right.
How does Chris deal with that?
Well, Chris just, I'm waiting for that to happen. Okay.
Do you use tasers or do you use cast iron skillets? What is that?
That's a broadhead arrow. It's an armor-piercing arrow.
If you didn't know.
Barrel.
That's
no, you're absolutely right. The people side of it, it's the people, the process, and the platform. People are so afraid of looking at the data and it telling them that they're not doing exactly what they thought it was going to be doing. They're afraid of being wrong. They're afraid of looking bad, and that's something that we always advise people, you just have to get over it, because if you don't fix it, you're just going to continue to do the wrong thing. And that's where the process and the platform come in. But it really does start with the people. So we often see people are untrained, in the wrong roles, looking at the wrong things, overworked, underpaid, like you name the thing, and there's a reason why the data is not being looked at correctly and understood.
Yeah, totally.
So you have to convince them that now's the time to start, though, too. Like, okay, so this is how you've been doing it, and maybe this isn't what you expected, but this is how it is. But, now you can fix it.
One of the funniest things that we've ever seen is that our sales partner, John Wall, who's the third team member on our team, very often says, we're going to build this as an advanced project. This is advanced analytics. But secretly, just between you and I, we know it's you fixing all your screw-ups, everything that you did wrong, and you know it's wrong, but you can't get your boss to sign off on fix our screw-ups.
Yeah.
So we're going to sell you advanced analytics.
Yes, that is such a, I love that you say that, though, because that is such a powerful statement. I think that's 100%, I could see that, because nobody wants to have an outside party come in and turn that upside down. And nobody wants to have to explain up the food chain that they're spending money to fix what they were supposed to do right 2 years ago. And so, there's got to be a whole lot of so much of this is just, if you were dealing with robots, it would be a lot easier probably. But those darn human beings with their filters and their egos and, all that other stuff, that's a big part of it,
And there's definitely a fear of automation, where automation will steal jobs. And, that's just not true. If anything, it really sort of frees you up. Don't let me
Chris is making a face.
Chris always makes a face.
I know. In the context of marketing, what it's really doing is it's freeing you up from all of that copying and
freeing you up to pursue a career in hairdressing.
I would be a terrible hairdresser. I can't do my own hair.
No one's gonna look at.
You were saying something encouraging and hopeful.
Yes,
I was, and Chris is about to tell me that I'm wrong, but let me finish first. So
I'm gonna let you finish, man.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Kanye. You know what? What I say doesn't matter. I'm wrong.
No, it does. You were saying
that it automates Yeah.
to spend more of their mental energy on like creative and strategic things.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. It takes away that where you're prone to error for doing the same thing redundant over and over and over again. You get that fatigue. And by having some automation collect that data or whatever the task is, you take out that ability to have those human errors, because the machine is going to do it the exact same way over and over again until you program it differently. So, Carrie, to your point, you absolutely can focus on those deeper insights, those actions, that execution, versus constantly being in that reactive state.
Yeah.
Now, Chris, tell us why Katie's wrong.
Yes.
I'm not going to tell you she's wrong, because that's what we want to encourage people to do. I will say that
you want to encourage people to not tell me I'm wrong. Got it.
No.
She carries a cast iron skillet. That's what she does.
But we read, and I shared this with Kathy, and I believe it was in a group pre-call stuff. There was a fascinating piece from the New York Times of a reporter that was in Davos, the World Economic Forum, last week, and he was talking to CEOs of large companies, large financials and stuff, behind the scenes, asking them, because the AI was the talk of the conference, that sustainability and climate change. And behind the scenes, CEOs were like, oh yeah, we do the lip service to, people are going to live better lives with this. But really, the one CEO of a financial said, I want to get thousands of jobs down to dozens. I need to reduce headcount by 2 orders of magnitude, because that's my golden ticket to profitability and beating the street. I can beat the street every quarter if I cut my headcount by 90%.
Yeah, that article that you shared was really, I think that's the secret fear that people have, right? They see all this stuff taken over and they're thinking they're going to be automated out of a job.
That's what they want to do. Like, so it's like the tobacco industry when they were like, good for you.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I think for publicly traded companies, that is a very realistic outcome. So I think but I do believe then that provides a massive market opportunity for everybody who's not under Wall Street's quarterly scrutiny, to, the people who keep their companies private, where they don't answer to the street, to say, yeah, we can use AI, we can use it thoughtfully, and we can use it to bring out the best on people. It will mean a substantial change in the workforce.
Yeah. People
will have to be, and this probably dovetails well, actually, Kathy, with what you do. People will have to be more human, because the machines will do everything else.
Yeah.
But you need to find people who have the broadest human experience, people who can think and create and paint and do art and all these things as part of their work, because the machines will literally do everything else. If you work at a publicly traded company, update your LinkedIn profile.
Yeah. I think there's a couple things here, and I had the same conversation with Shell Israel a while ago, and about a lot of looking at the fourth, kind of dimension and the fourth wave of technology, and that is a fear, and I get why, and it's also a very realistic scenario for a lot of companies that want to automate the things humans don't do well. I mean, let's face it, there's things that human beings don't do well. I think what it could do, and if we're going to be kind of optimistic about this scenario, I think the good news is that it could open up an age where the things that human beings do well, empathy, thinking about that larger human experience, that aren't things that are easily automatable, that don't have a huge ROI for humans to be doing anyway, and they're not good at it. Let human beings focus on ingenuity and innovation and creativity and figuring out new experiences for those companies and new products, and the things that machines scale to process and parse data and look for patterns and all these different things that they do well. Customer service, jury's still out. I don't know. I don't like talking to, machines all the time on customer service, but there are things that I think could open up putting humans back on the task of hopefully better experiences, better, more empathy in the work that they do. That's my optimistic scenario. Now, this is probably where Chris tells me I'm wrong.
And AI working for customer service in areas where people would be embarrassed talking to somebody else.
Yeah.
How do I pick the right sex toy? Or there's a lot of things people don't feel comfortable discussing with another actual person, and they will. I mean, that's why we have online shopping.
Yeah.
But some automated support that won't judge them or their fetish or whatever, would be good, because you can't help making a face when somebody says something really crazy.
Totally.
Well,
Exactly.
And to that point, AI chatbots are really changing the way that customer service is done, because what it does is it goes through all of those screener calls so that when you actually get on the phone with an actual person, you can have a more meaningful conversation, because they're not spending their time asking you what's your age, your address, your date of birth, all that stuff that you have to ask in order to get through to the customer service rep.
They can bring you straight to the bondage rep.
Well, no, it's true. But I've had pleasant bot experiences, AI experiences, like at Bloomingdale's, where it was more polite and pleasurable experience than with some of the like customer service people I've ever talked to. Like that was an upgrade. That talking to, this AI kind of thing was actually better than some of the customer service people. So yeah, absolutely.
More egalitarian.
Well, more egalitarian, but more friendly. When bots are an upgrade, a personality upgrade for your company, you got a customer service problem. Absolutely. No question.
So do people need to be scared or not? So I hear you saying, Chris, that in publicly traded companies, there'll be additional pressure to use AI in a way that maybe isn't ideal and does push people out of jobs, whereas in privately held companies, that's not the case.
Profit, yeah.
I think people need to be concerned, to Chris's point, if their job is completely replaceable and there's no insight and creativity in what it is that they do. But a really great example of AI that we've adopted at our company is how we do our social media content. So Chris has been able to automate a script that basically pulls all of the relevant third-party content that we can then share across our social media channels. What used to take us hours every week literally takes us about 5 to 10 minutes. And so basically every week you get this list of on-topic third-party data, third-party articles that you can share on your social media. And where the creativity comes in is writing those intro posts and sharing, hey, did you see this article? Here's a quote from it. So you can spend your time on that versus actually curating all of the content.
Yeah. The layer of analysis, or the sort of the added value added on top of that, I think is where humans add value, and that's what we should be doing. I think that's a better use of our time, actually. But I think to Carrie's point, and I'm gonna call this a win for Katie, and also a win for Chris. It's split because I think you're right. I think there is pressure but Chris is right. There's pressure, I think, for publicly traded companies. Profit. I mean, look, if you go back a few years ago, remember the tremendous pressure that people felt to take their customer service and outsource it overseas. And you saw a lot of and everybody was doing it because it was like, how can we do this at the cheapest possible, rate? And then in some of those cases, they ended up coming back because the offshoring that customer service did not result in better customer service. So I think everyone's going to try certain things, but the bigger the company, the more scale that they think they can buy with AI, that's pure profit right there. Of course they're going to be incented,
We made the same mistake, Kathy, with that, because there were whole swaths of time that people, like say in the continental United States, wouldn't want to be answering customer service calls because they'd be asleep. So move it offshore there if you want to have 24-hour customer service. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But it was more the pure profit motivation without the support organizationally to make it quality. And they could do the same thing here. I'm thinking some of these companies that Chris is talking about that are like, we're going to automate everything and lay off a bunch of people. Okay, if that followed through to all of society, pretty much we have Morlocks and Eloys, and the Morlocks would be the AI machine learning, and the Eloys would be the rest of us who just sit around lounging and wait for the machine to break. That's not a great outcome.
No,
it's about the time machine. By the way, if anybody didn't get it, the H.G. Wells.
Elysium was the same thing. I mean, I think the Elysium outcome is the most likely outcome. We're not going to get to Skynet and Judgment Day. We are also not going to get to WALL-E. We are going to get to Elysium, where there is a highly privileged superclass, and then there's everybody else who lives on a radiated planet.
Is there an opt-in form that we fill out now to be not on the original?
To not on that? Yeah, I'm with Carrie. Let's do that.
Can you hack that system? Can you actually be the one who develops it so we can get on that list?
Well, this is go ahead, Chris, because I think this is another point I want to come back to. But go ahead.
Yes. Then send me a mustard basket.
This brings to the point that Kathy brought up early on the show, a very important point, which is that the machines do what they are told, which means that if we are giving them biased data or we're intentionally telling them to come to a conclusion that is not optimal, they will do as they are told. And so you will create, you can create very positive outcomes. You can create substantially negative outcomes. One of the reasons why Facebook is in as much trouble as it is because they built an algorithm with a very clear objective: get people engaged, get people to pay attention to Facebook and never leave it. And the algorithm did exactly that by making everybody angry, by promoting things that were completely false, but because you believed it, you spent more time on site. And so there is this has been the case for years and years and years. It's been the case through all civilization, but ethics has always been kind of a backseat, add-on to our business processes. If ethics are not in the driver's seat, or at least, riding shotgun, you're going to create tremendous inequalities with AI because it will do everything we do, but do it much faster.
Yeah, and that strikes me as, that's a good segue, because I think talking about governance and, the unconscious bias thing is such a big thing, as you guys know. You see this in the work you do, and I don't know how much, though. I'm curious, how much do you think that the folks, in companies, in the executive suite are saying, we really worry about our data having unconscious bias? Or do you think that's sort of that's not even something they think about? And so do they not get the connection between, where that could take us? Because, it's an interesting thing, and it's a very real thing. And when we think about insurance rates or mortgage rates, or we think about serving people with disabilities who are said to be among the most underrepresented in a lot of data sets, and they're therefore have the most bias against them because the data sets underrepresent them. That's a very real thing, but I suppose if people are still trying to understand the data, Katie and Chris, are they even understanding the impact that the unconscious bias factor, and how are you helping them understand that? Do you bring that up? How is that even, what are those conversations like?
Well, so you have people who sort of serve those two masters. So you have the executives who have the best of intentions, but then they don't realize what that unconscious bias actually looks like because, they're trying to make more money, or they're reporting to a board who wants them to make more money. And oftentimes, those two things, the good intentions and the making more money, don't jive well together. And so that's where we really have to pick apart what is it that you actually want to accomplish. Like, yes, you can make more money. However, these are the things that you can't do with your data if that's your goal. Or if you want to have the best of intentions, then you might have to take a revenue cut for a little while to sort of let the data catch up or collect certain things. So it is. They're two different lanes that haven't quite merged together yet.
This book by Dr. Hilary Mason, Mike Lukitas, and DJ Patel, Ethics in Data Science, is mandatory reading for everyone and anyone who is touching any kind of data project. It is available on Amazon. It is 100% free of cost, so you have no excuse not to get it. And a lot of what is in this book is exactly what Katie and I do all day with customers, which is ask them to do planning, ask them to think about unintended consequences. If you say this is the outcome, the model we want to build, okay, cool. What if it does this? Are you prepared for that? What if it does this? Is this a desired outcome? If you're making a recommendation engine, if you want to make software that recommends something, do you want it to recommend less to certain minorities? And if most people are like, oh God, no, I would never want to do that. Cool. You need to plan for that. You need to account for that. One of the biggest bugaboos particularly in machine learning and deep learning is inferred variables. I can say in an HR system, I'm going to disallow gender as a choice. I'm going to disallow age as a choice. The model may not use those for consideration. But if I have your school, your music choices, your book choices, your movie choices, guess what? The model is just as likely to build an inferred version of gender and discriminate on it just as well. So those are considerations that all are part of planning and governance that have to be part of any major data project.
Yeah. And I would say to that point, people resist planning and governance because they take time.
Yeah.
And people they just want to do the thing right now, just plug it in, make it collect data, automate something. You have to do that planning, and it'll take longer than you want it to if you do it right.
So then how are you dealing with because, one of the talks that I'm giving at South by, as you guys know, is Sandy Carter and I are doing this look at unconscious bias and machine learning, and it's not funny, and the case studies are crazy. And you can kind of see how that could happen because you could see that there hasn't been governance. And the question that I come back to is, because I'm fascinated by it, is, all right, so where does that start? How do you create in an organization a system or a group of people that says, hey, we're the ones asking questions, we're the ones at least poking around, even if we don't understand the data, so that somebody is looking at it from have you thought of this? Have you thought of that? Are we checking for this kind of bias? Are we checking for not just racial and gender, but are we checking for socioeconomic bias? Are we for people who live in low income neighborhoods? Are we checking all the boxes? How do you go about setting that in? Because it seems to me that that's like such a powerful thing, and it goes hand in hand with governance. But are there people in these big companies that are asking those questions, or are we leaving the developers to just, well, it's not biased, I'm not biased? I mean, what's going on with that?
Fear. The answer to this problem is fear.
Yeah.
When you look at a compliance and governance model, like one of the models we use is the ISO 38500 spec, an entire line of that is risk mitigation, compliance, governance, and risk management.
Yeah.
If you want to slow down anything in a company, just bring legal in and say, hey, you have serious risk exposure, you have a lawsuit, you have bad publicity, you have liability, and the lawyers will be like, shh, here we are, we're ready to stop this project.
But on the other side of that, there are solutions that can be had. One of the things that we see a lot, especially in the larger companies, is that it's so siloed into the different departments that they don't see what's happening. So our default recommendation is always, well, have you thought of creating some sort of a steering committee? Mm-hmm. And that doesn't need to be all the executives, but it could be just folks, managers, coordinators from across all of the different disciplines to help be more representative. And, I've run steering committees in the past at different companies. I found that is the best way. It's a pain in the ass.
Oh, yeah.
It's the best way to get all of the different voices. And once you can collect all of that data from all of the different disciplines, then you can start to make more informed decisions and talk through those scenarios and the what ifs and the use cases. But without that, I mean, plain and simple, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, and you need diversity on those teams. And I'm with you, because nobody needs more bureaucracy in organizations. Like, I kick my own butt even saying this out loud. Let's start a steering committee, everybody. And everyone's like, who wants to volunteer? And everyone's like, oh, shit. No. Everyone's like, I got a thing. My kid's got a thing. I got to go. And I get that. But this is such an important point that it seems to me, too, that diversity of that steering committee is just super important. Get the women on there, get people of color on there, get people at different layers of the organization, so you have the right people asking the questions. Hey, have we looked at it through, people with disabilities? I mean, are we looking at it through the right socioeconomic framing? Are we, all the questions that have to be asked. But I know it's such a pain in the ass. You're so right. Nobody needs another committee, but it seems to me this has to be made a priority, Someone's got to do it. Someone's got to do it.
We used to turn it into a game with all the different disciplines, and we would call it the Product 360.
Yeah.
And basically lock ourselves in the conference room for 2 days and put up all the whiteboards and the sticky notes and all that, and really try to turn it into something fun and engaging.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it was a steering committee, but we were able to get people, to your point, from all the different levels, and really, but to keep them engaged, and we feed them, and just sort of like hire someone from the outside to keep that energy up, make them the bad guy. Like, whatever you have to do to get it done, but it needs to get done.
Yeah.
From a technological perspective, too, and this is where you can involve those developers, is to up-level their thinking away from quick, easy answers. For example, if you are building a model that you want to achieve a certain goal, encourage the developers to say, like, have you looked, for example, at multi-objective optimization? This is something that LinkedIn does phenomenally well with its newsfeed. Because of the way they do their internal governance, their newsfeed algorithm optimizes for 5 major goals, one of which is customer complaints. So imagine if you're building a system of some kind, you may have diversity as one of the required objectives that the model is expected to meet. You know, profitability, yes. Engagement, yes. Retention, yes. Diversity, yes. And now the model has to do a bunch of trade-off analytics to say, I'm going to give you 4% less profitability, but 20% more diversity, and to get to the numbers that across the board. So the steering committee has to be guiding the development of the model to say, this is the set of outcomes we all care about as a company and are aligned to our company's values.
I do want to caveat a little bit, Chris, what you're saying. One of the challenges is that people don't know what questions to ask. And so in order to have a steering committee or whatever you want to call it be successful, people have to be open and patient. So I don't even remember what the question was that you said, ask your developers this. People don't know to ask those questions, and that's where the big gap is between the technology and the people in the process.
Yeah.
Because people don't even know what it's supposed to do, what questions to ask, where to start. Or if I said to Chris, hey, how did you build that predictive algorithm? He could tell me anything. I don't know if he's wrong.
There's no check to his intelligence.
Granted, I have a good BS meter, but that is a real problem. Even if you do ask the questions, you don't know if the response that you're getting is accurate or not.
Yeah.
And that's a huge gap that we're facing right now, and that's where a lot of the education comes in. Sorry,
so that we can all keep an eye on Chris.
Yeah.
We had that problem at my last company, though. We legitimately, for the work that we did, there was nobody in any part of the company that was qualified to evaluate my work.
Yeah.
Which, in some ways, is good because it freed us to do new things, but in other ways, it can be a very challenging place for those highly technical staff because their professional development is severely limited when there's no one they can go to and say, hey, what do you think about this? Even today, I'm trying to troubleshoot an issue with something on our website, and I'm like, hey, does anyone know how to do this particular thing? And the people ask are like, What?
Yeah.
What even is that?
It's
it's such a burden being smart.
It is. Chris is like, I just know that when the robots finally come and he builds his robot army, I am in like Chris's group. That's all I know. That's done. No, it's not.
That list changes. You make sure you stay on the list.
Exactly. I gotta work it. But that's a really interesting point, though. I suspect, I think I could see that being a real thing. I mean, I wouldn't even know what questions to ask from a technical standpoint. And that can be a big pain in the butt, but that also frees you up. Don't you think, Carrie? Carrie's sitting here, I think, looking beautiful.
People don't know that they have a problem. This is what I'm thinking. So they don't even know. They might be like, holy crap, this product isn't performing like we want, or these things aren't going the way we want. It's not occurring to them that the answer could be in their data, and they just can't see it. Like, they lack the background to get that data into shape to where it could show them some actual, causal relationships between things. You pulled this out of A and B and C fell down. Like, they're never going to ask those questions. So, like, what kinds of people need Trust Insights or a company like it to help them figure out what their problem even is?
We're going to go ahead and say everybody.
Everybody's not your market, Katie Robert. But they kind of are in this case. I know you guys are one of those weird exceptions.
No, honestly, and I won't go into the whole thing, but we have this explanation of the analytics hierarchy, and it starts with that quantitative data, and it sort of goes up the rungs to qualitative, predictive, proactive, and machine learning, where it's really just sort of doing everything for you. And at that bottom rung of the ladder is where most people, most companies are stuck. They don't even know what happened within their own data. So Carrie, to your point about they don't know that there's a problem, we often see people just throw more money at it or change it without testing or assume that it's the wrong audience or the wrong market. And all of those questions could be answered within their own data. They're just not looking because for most people, that's just not the fun part. It's a lot of work. It takes time.
Do you think that's it, or do you think they're making an assumption about what it would take to properly find the answer? That they think that they can't afford it or they're not qualified?
I think that's a big part of it as well. I think it's data. To where Kathy started the conversation, there's so much data and it's overwhelming and it can be very daunting to even know where to start.
Chris, you're like, everything is wrong.
That's
you guys
exactly
are doing, no, not Katie. I mean, like the people's company, when they come to you, are you like, oh God, here we go? Like
with my inside voice, yes. But when we talk to people, the companies you don't want to work with, other than the ones that are in violation of your core values, are the ones where they don't have goals, they don't have a strategy, and so nothing you do will have any impact. Nothing you do will matter. You can take their money, but at the end of the day, you know that nothing will come of it. We did a project last year for a company that was so badly broken inside that their sales department prohibited marketing from seeing any sales data. Prohibited. Was not allowed to see it. Like, so you're doing all this marketing and you literally have no idea, other than reading the press releases in the newspaper about your company's earnings, that anything you're doing has any meaning. So all the work that we did, it was fun to do it. And we had a good time. The people we did it with had a good time. They enjoyed it, but it didn't change anything. It didn't affect anything. And there was no way to calibrate the models that we built and the code we built to the bottom line, because they're expressly forbidden from seeing the bottom line. So the companies that, one of the things we ask when we talk to companies is like, do you have access to your own data? Do you have a goal that is a business goal that you have a line of sight to? And what are you held accountable for? One of my favorite questions that we ask is, what are you measured by? Like, when you talk about